Okay, so question? Paul, did you want to go? Or?
Yeah, I had a question. Well, you talked about national liberation in that as nations we need to start fighting imperialism and stuff like that. But why not should it be global liberation, where it's more of every anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, everyone that wants to fight against the imperialists fights at one time, and as a world we take over, just knock down the imperialism. Because basically that's what it is that it's so integrated into our system that even with a socialist country, just one socialist country that's doing everything correctly, it can't survive. It needs more, and that's why we need to do it as a global scale rather than just a national.
Well, I would always go with countries want independence, nations want liberations, and the people want a revolution. Absolutely, we need a global revolution, and I aim at nothing less than the global abolition of capitalism. However, what you also need to keep in mind are two things. The pragmatics and the theoretical principles involved in national liberation. The thing about pragmatics is capitalists are not integrated, and this is to their benefit most of the time. And the reason why it's to their benefit is because by not being integrated, their competition spurs a sort of progress, right? Capitalist progress, which is not for nothing, right? The very fact that we can record this and put it on YouTube, it is something. I don't think it's enough, but it's something. But as a matter of fact, this sort of lack of coherence is very effective when the capitalists get in struggles. And it creates fault lines. Now, these fault lines are not universal or global fault lines. They're particular fault lines to particular situations, right? They're particular sites where revolution is possible. And what we need to do is we need to carry out revolution on those sites. And what we can't do is get so this is actually I'll transition it, right? But what we can't do is we can't get caught up in the idealist, and I don't mean idealist in, right, I have values and, oh, I want to change the world. I mean idealist in the sense that one is disconnected from the world and not at all, right, understanding the material conditions. We cannot get into the materialist, we can't avoid the materialist fact that not everywhere is a revolutionary site. Now, this is not to say that revolutionary sites don't come into being, they don't pass away, but the notion, if you substantiate global revolution, and you say we should all globally fight capital, either one of two things happen. Either one, you instantiate it in the form of revolutionary sites, in which case you're led back to national liberation, or what you do is you say every site is a revolutionary site, and we can fight in every site, which, I'll be honest, there are people who agree with that. If that is your view, you would very much enjoy the works of Antonio Negri and Michael Hart, Empire, Multitude, and they have a new book out, Commonwealth. The only problem is, not only does that not work, which is a pretty big problem, but also it reduces any notion of revolution to just a play of powers. On the surface, this may seem incredibly liberating, right? Everyone is both revolutionary and capitalist. And you do revolutionary acts and you do capitalist acts. Well, two things. One is it becomes very elitist. And two, it allows one to actually disengage oneself from the struggle. Well, how would it make it elitist if everyone can do that? Well, I go to, the farmer's market and I only buy local, independently grown, blah, 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 etc., etc. What are the conditions for someone being able to do that? It's that they're being a wealthy, Western, European, or Euro type, right? We're the barbarians of Europe, still part of Europe, but a European, essentially, style country. You know who doesn't have the option of, organic, fair trade coffee and what have you? People starving to death in Darfur or now Haiti, right? And so what happens is it separates you from the actual context and constructs of real radical revolution. So that's problem one. The second thing is, not only is it elitist in that fashion, two is it renders any analysis basically impossible. If you abandon class, which I believe I have a lecture on our YouTube channel on class theory. If you abandon class and the means of production as the essence of the revolutionary struggle, which again, and here's the thing, national liberation is a means. It's not an end, right? The goal is to overthrow capitalism. The means is, and capitalism uses the means of imperialism, right, and is connected to imperialism. The means by which communism fights imperialism is national liberation. So what happens is then it becomes a play of powers, right? I mean, this is the precise Foucauldian sense of the word, is you just have powers for manipulation. Either you sum up the total of revolutionary powers, you sum up the total of capitalist powers or bourgeois powers, and as soon as one is higher, then that one wins, and as soon as that one is higher, then the other one wins. But in this principle, right, if every sort of action can be revolutionary in a sense, then you don't have to engage in any particular action. Any good revolutionary action will suffice for any other. For example, sharing music, right? That subverts, right? If you do it illegally through BitTorrent, that subverts capitalist production. I mean, this is demonstrably true. Also, it's not cumulative. You can't file share your way to revolution, right? And so this very notion of the play of powers, again, misses the point. So you'll notice we've moved from pragmatics to the theoretical. And so, again, the theoretical aspect is we should always understand national liberation, substantive national liberation, as a progressive anti-capitalist move, right? Anyone, white supremacists in Idaho can declare themselves that they want a white nation. This is not national liberation because it in no way attempts to undermine the conditions of imperialism. They just want to be their own new imperial power. And there's nothing revolutionary about that. Which is, and I want to go back to, we always need to approach this with a critical eye. In America, a really good example is black liberation. There is honest, legitimate black liberation, like the Black Panther Party of previous yesteryear. I'm not too set on the current Black Panther Party, right? But that was black liberation. That was national liberation, right? Because the goal was not to simply become black capitalists or black bourgeois or black imperialists, whereas some of the more I would call them right-wing strains of the Nation of Islam, for example, would not constitute national liberation. It would constitute a racist, capitalist, imperialist effort to make oneself a power. And so in this case, again, I have to say that the notion of global revolution in this form either breaks down into national liberation, and so we're saying the same things, and if we are, then okay, we agree. But if we're not, then I think it's a vacuous and empty phrase that doesn't substantiate itself. Or actually, I'm sorry, Greg had his hand up first.